Mike Snyder, we always referred to this sport as tractor pulling, but I think most correctly for 1987, in the last couple of years, we should refer to it as tractor and truck pulling because the trucks play such an important part of the sport.
Well, in your four-wheel drive truck class, which is what we have behind us here, this is the class where the Ford and Chevy fans can really get in rooting for their own, you know, whatever type of equipment that
whatever turns them on. Huh?
That's right.
The four-wheel drives now, we're talking about a truck that would be similar to the four-wheel drive truck that you might have at home, except I see some larger tires and a bigger motor, and everything looks heavy-duty.
Yeah, everything has to be built especially for pulling. This particular class doesn't run blowers or turbochargers, superchargers. They're fuel injected on alcohol, but the entire chassis of the truck is built specifically for pulling. They have to remove the springs so that the wheels don't bounce up and down and chatter on the ground, you know. They have to add like traction bars to them to keep the axles and the drivetrain components from rotating out of position. And then there's, from one end of the vehicle to the other is all sort of safety, all types of safety equipment put on them. And the four-wheel drives, they don't stand up and pull wheelies like the tractors and the two-wheel drives do, but it's a real exciting class, and the fans just love it.
I now know what it feels like to sit in Kenny Bernstein's 280-mile-an-hour funny car on the drag strips. Because what I'm sitting in right now is what they call a two-wheel drive, super modified funny truck, or in this case, a funny car. We've got a 1,700 horsepower supercharged alcohol-fueled engine out in front. The steering wheel is in my lap. The entire length of the car in this case is 15 feet, capable of pulling approximately 60,000 pounds of weight down a 300-foot track. The two-wheel drive super modified is the newest division in competition pulling around the country, and it's becoming one of the most popular because people can relate to the Fords, the Dodges, and the Chevrolet. You still have that $20,000 to $30,000 high-performance motor out there, along with the larger tires on the back for pulling. The small tires are out on the front for steering. Now remember, these are not the four-wheel drives like we saw earlier. These are the two-wheel drives. And actually, a two-wheel drive, funny car, funny truck, can pull more weight in many cases than a four-wheel drive can. The next division are the modified dragster tractors. I like to refer to them as the monsters of the Midway. Mike Snyder, what makes the modified dragster tractor what it is?
Well, Dave, you're not too many other motorsports where you can go see a machine with 6 engines in it, but we'll have one here this weekend. We've got several tractors that'll have 5 solid aluminum racing engines in it. We have one here with 4 Allison aircraft engines in it, several tractors with double Allisons. It's just everything you can imagine that makes horsepower, and a lot of it you'll see in your heavy modified tractor class.
Well, how do they hook these 3, 4, 5, and 6 engine tractors together?
There's several different ways that the motors are hooked together. Sometimes the motors are set in line, crankshaft to crankshaft, like the ones behind us right here. And then on the rear end of this tractor, they have the motor setting in sideways. Because of the twist and torque that the motor exerts on the chassis of the tractor, if you have all the motors setting in the chassis the same way, it'll put the tractor in a terrible bind, and both rear wheels won't set evenly on the track. So in the tractor behind us, they've set the motors in crossways. They do that with a small gearbox that has 3 input shafts into it and then 1 shaft that goes back into the transmission. They set the motors in the tractor sideways, and that way when those motors torque, they either apply the torque to the front end or the rear end of the tractor. They don't twist the chassis sideways.
Have we reached the peak in the multiple engines? Will we be able to get more engines in a tractor?
Well, the tractors are classed by weight, not how much horsepower they have or how big their tires are or how many engines they have. It's all done according to weight. And as long as the pullers keep being as ingenious as they have up to this point, it's hard to say how many motors you may see in a tractor someday.
Well, we look forward to seeing the tractors in the modified dragster tractor class. Tractor pulling has its grassroots with the stock farm tractors of over 40 years ago. The division which most closely resembles those stock farm tractors are what we call the super stock tractors of the 80s. But Mike Snyder, they're not really stock tractors. They're all souped up. What makes them so?
Well, Dave, believe it or not, these super stock tractors are the most expensive tractors to build in the entire sport.
Mike, that's hard to believe because I don't see 5 automotive engines hanging on back here at $30,000 apiece. Why is that?
Well, they only have one engine in them, Dave, but it's the original engine that came in this tractor. The Super Stalkers have to look like what they were originally. If it's a John Deere, if it's an International, if it's a Case, whatever, it still has to retain its stock appearance. But under the hood, that's where the secrets of these things lie. You take an engine that was designed probably for 100 or 150 horsepower. These are putting out 1,500 or more horsepower out of that same engine block. Under the hood of these things is 4 turbochargers. These tractors run intake pressure or boost pressure as high as 250 pounds. That means when the piston is clear at the bottom of its stroke before it ever starts coming up, it has 250 pounds of compression.
Well, you're taking stock farm block tractors and pouring all that horsepower in it. Are these blocks solid enough to take this horsepower?
Well, they kind of find the weak points in them. Every once in a while, you'll see part of a guy's block laying on the track. But that's one thing that makes these tractors cost so much is the internal work inside the transmission, inside the rear end, inside the engine block. The work that it takes to make these things hang together is just unbelievable. And then you have one other problem with these tractors, especially at indoor pulls, is the smoke. They put probably 10 times as much diesel fuel through these diesel engines as a stock engine would use. And, well, you've seen them. It just looks like a black tornado coming out the top of the pipe.
The Super Stock division, I think you'll find it very exciting. All right, Mike Snyder, we start session 2, Saturday afternoon of Indy Super Pull 14. And we couldn't start off with any better tractor here in the 5,000 modified, our first class, than the defending champion, Tim Engler.
Well, Dave, this is a 5-engine tractor with 3 of the engines removed. Tim only runs 2 in the 5, so we just couldn't ask for a better test puller.
Well, it's interesting. When they take 3 engines off, does it change? Of course, it changes the horsepower dramatically, a lot less. But does it change the handling of the tractor?
It changes the balance of the tractor. It changes the gear ratio, how fast the rear tires go around. Everything changes with a change in horsepower.
Well, he's still cranking out about 3,500 to 4,000 RPMs. You can see the tractor shaking a little bit as he comes off the line. He's really moving. He's got tremendous speed up now. Mission Impossible doesn't take more than about 10 seconds to get down to the end of the track, and he's going to make a full pull with Mission Impossible. Tim Engler. You know, we've said so much about this young puller from Princeton, Indiana, Mike, but he truly now is at the top of his game.
Yes, he is. Tim's worked hard a lot of years and built a lot of tractors.
It was
a lot of equipment running out there that
such
Tim
a
built.
Pretty run. Let's take a look at it here again now. And you can see that he gets a lot of speed. The front end comes up, and would you say that was properly balanced?
I'd say it was. The front end lifted, and he carried it all the way down the track. The tractor was just perfectly balanced.
Full pull. Here comes Leo Kay now from Bradford, Pennsylvania, and once again we see the tractor with a couple of engines removed, similar to what Tim Engler had. It's interesting, Mike, a lot of people that may be watching this tape for the first time, just how do they hook these 2 motors together so they run appropriately at the same time?
Those 2 engines are set in line are coupled together, crankshaft to crankshaft, and then there is a single clutch on the back of the back or second motor, and then the drive shaft going back to the tractor transmission.
Let's say that the front engine might want to lay down. Maybe it's not getting the right amount of fuel or something's wrong with the engine. Is this really going to hurt the overall run?
It will in the case where the engines are coupled crankshaft to crankshaft. If each engine had its own individual clutch, it wouldn't be any problem because the clutches lock up with centrifugal force. But crank to crank, when one goes down, it drags the other one with it.
And, of course, we'll see, though, more multiple engine tractors later on, this one and Engler's included. Here we go now. Leo Kay from Bradford, Pennsylvania, the driller, appropriately named as the LK Drilling Special, comes off the line. He's got a lot of speed, but he's starting to drift to the right-hand side of the track. He's having to work the brakes very, very hard. The green flag is still up, but he comes to a halt short of a full pull, and Leo Kay is going to record 2:22 and 11. Rick Austin has been a very popular 5 and 7,000 pound modified puller for many, many years, the 5 being his best class, with dirt flirt. This has been a good tractor and a very stable tractor, not a lot of breakage. Rick Austin, a farmer from southern Wisconsin, Broadhead, Wisconsin exactly. It's a Reed chassis with a couple of Chevrolet engines out there. He's off to a fast start.
He's lifting, balance as well. It's still dragging him off to the right side of the track a little bit.
And you can see the butterflies closed. He's going to come up short at 2:03 and 11. Only one full pull so far. That's Tim Engler. All right, now we go back to this tractor that's had a couple of motors removed, similar to what two of them we've already seen before. Here comes the tractor from Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, driven by Steve Jaski. Last time we saw him on the first tape, he had run out of bounds, so he wants to keep it between the white lines. Steve Jaski running a Weber chassis with 2 Aries. We'll see him later on with 4, and then we'll see him on Sunday afternoon's performance with 5 engines. So here again, the big motors, plenty of power, but do you have it properly balanced? Can you keep it between the white lines?
Well, that's kind of the story. That's no matter how much power you have, you still have to go out and make a good pull, and that's where the driver comes into play.
Monday following Super Pull 14, this tractor will be loaded, Mike, and it'll be put on a container and headed to the East Coast, where it'll be put on a ship. It'll be going, along with the family, the Jaski family, over to Europe to pull in Holland this winter. Here comes Steve Jaski now as he leads the line. A lot of shake there in the rear of the tractor, but he's got good speed, lifting very high now as he heads down the center of the track. He's moving, coming close, but is going to be a little shy of the checkered flag. He'll have a distance of 2:26.8. Good run, but normally you expect this tractor to make a full pull.
Normally you would, but the front end got up a little too high on him. Of course, when the front end goes up, the drawbar goes down, and that severely affects your pull.
Here we get another look at Steve Jaski, and you can see a little bit of shake there in the rear end. And Mike, notice that the chassis has a little bit of turn to it, or torque to it. Does that hurt the performance of the tractor in any way?
It will affect how the rear tires lock into the track. That's one reason that they mount the motors crosswise.
All right, here's our first look now at a single Allison. Jan Schmeising out of Sydney, Ohio. Homemade chassis, as all of these chassis are, with an Allison aircraft engine. Tell us about the power plant, Mike.
It's a V12 1710 cubic inch Allison. It's fuel injected on alcohol. It still has the crankshaft-driven supercharger on the front end, but it has a pretty sophisticated fuel injection.
What would you say, from a stock motor to an injected Allison, how much more horsepower would he get out of the injection system?
It's really kind of difficult to say. The important thing that the fuel injection system does is it's a lot more dependable than carburetors. You don't have to worry about the engine leaning out and severe detonation problems.
Pushes that fuel in there at a lot better rate. Here we come now. That big Allison 1710, he's probably hitting 4,000 to 5,000 RPM. A good run for Jan Schmeising here in the 5 modified. And he comes to a halt at 2:07.9. Mike, we see some flames coming off. What is that?
When the engine goes back to an idle, the fuel injection system hasn't quite caught up with itself yet. It's just a little bit of extra fuel going through the engine.
Here comes the tractor they call Triple Chaos out of West Alexandria, Ohio. Wayne Garrett, the driver. He calls it Triple Chaos, but I only see 2 motors, Mike.
Well, it's a Triple Chaos when it gets into the 7,000-pound class.
Of course, that's one of the unique things about pulling nationwide, is the addition and subtraction of motors for the different classes. One of the things that this sport has over drag racing, where you can run several different weight classes. He may have a little bit less horsepower here than some of the other guys, but a very good, consistent, straight line puller, and he'll get the most out of his tractor that he can. You can see the front end picking up and very nicely balanced. Maybe a little high, would you say, Mike?
Just a little bit, but not too bad. His balance was close.
A little warm out there, 184.6 for the distance. All right, here we go now. Willie Hawkins, all the way from Texas. He may have come as far as anybody for this pull. Mike, tell us about the history of this tractor, because this has been in several hands of some really good pullers in the past.
This was the first tractor ever to run the 5 modified with an Allison aircraft engine in it. It was originally built by Dave Haley, the first president of the National Tractor Pullers Association. And from Dave Haley, the tractor went to Stan Burton out in Iowa and was campaigned by Stan very successfully for quite a few years.
Here comes Willie Hawkins off the line with his Allison. Now, this does not have the injection system on it, but looks like he's getting a lot of speed. Look at those tires.
It is fuel injected on alcohol, but the fuel injector is right on the nose of the engine, and all the fuel goes in through the supercharger.
Good point. And Willie Hawkins comes up at 195.2. All right, here comes our only Canadian entry of the weekend, Andre Senard out of Grand Isle, Quebec, Canada, running a couple of Chevys out there in a very beautiful 5 mod.
It's a beautiful tractor, Dave. The paint job, the chrome work, and the attention to detail on this tractor is just, from one end to the other, it's just a beautiful machine.
Well, if you get up in Andre's part of the North America to Quebec, there, of course, a lot of French-speaking people up there. He calls it sensation. I'm not sure what the word in French would be, but sensational or something like that, Mike. But this is a gorgeous machine. If he can make a straight run, get the front end up a little bit, he's got a shot of at least being there in the high placings here in the 5,000 modified. If he comes off the line, the flagman gives him the green flag. He's on his way. Now he begins to lift. He's got to work those brakes a little bit so he doesn't go out of bounds.
Awful hard.
And you can see there's the white line on the left-hand side of our picture. He's only about 1.5 feet from going out of bounds, but he does keep it between the white lines. The final distance for Andre Senard from Canada, 169 and 10. Here's Dave Walsh now from Boston, Wisconsin. We saw him earlier in the 7. Now he's here in the 5 with one motor removed, Mike. These Aries motors that many of the pullers are running, tell us a little bit about this big aluminum block engine.
Well, the Aries engines are mainly used in two motorsports, tractor pulling being the main one. The other one is drag boat racing. They really haven't been used all that much in drag racing up to this point.
You're talking primarily about an alcohol engine then rather than nitromethane.
Rather than a nitromethane.
All right, the distance for Dave Walsh, 2:19 even. That moves him up in the standings. Mike, about 6-7 years ago, the Thumper tractor that was a Buckeye tractor was very well known after winning a couple of 5,000-pound modified championships. But it's got a different power plant in it now because it's owned by a driver up in Elizabethtown, New York, with the name of Wayne Clark, and he's taken a couple of big KBs out of it and got an Allison aircraft engine in.
Yeah, the fuel injected on alcohol, and I would imagine that Allison probably just has about as much steam as the two Keith Blacks did that were in there before.
That's right. Now, the Allison that is in there, of course, you say a V12 1710. What was the Allison originally used in as a power plant?
It was used in World War II fighter planes, and it was supercharged. Of course, any high-altitude plane, the engine would have to be supercharged.
All right, we're talking about a motor now that's over 40 years old. It's become a standout engine, not only in the boat racing, the Unlimited, but also tractor and truck pulling as well. Here he comes. Looks like, what is that, raw alcohol coming out of that right rear of the motor?
Well, even though the engine's a V12, it has 24 pipes on it because it has 4 valves per cylinder, and there was one cylinder misfiring there. That was raw alcohol.
And the distance for Wayne Clark out of New York, 199 and 11. Here comes the chief nemesis of Tim Engler. Engler in the lead right now with a full pull. This is his buddy, Fred Freeman. Will this be another duel like we saw in that 7,000-pound modified on the first evening of competition here at Super Pull 14? What do you think, Mike? Do you think he's got a chance of making a full pull?
I'd say Fred definitely has a chance. As strong as he looked in that 7 modified, he'll be right in there in this class.
There's been talk in the pit area about the different kind of grind that he has on his tires versus some of the other pullers. What do you think of that?
He does have his tires set up just a little bit different, but I think the secret of Fred's tractor is he has the right tire, the right gear, the right horsepower. He just has the perfect combination, and when you have a combination like that, you're just darn hard to beat.
Here he comes. It's a family affair, and he just gets it out the end. You can see the white line across the track there. He barely makes it out. Fred Freeman now. We've got a pull-off, definitely, in this class. Well, here we come. Now, this guy is as ingenious as they come in the business, Mike. Here's Mike Holden out of Marietta, Ohio, the vocational agriculture teacher. With, right now, I only see one Allison, but look at all of that extra space. He must have a lot of room for more.
Well, believe it or not, Dave, before this pulls over, you'll see this tractor come back up with 3 more Allisons in it. It's the only tractor ever built that'll carry 4 Allison aircraft engines.
And it was just a year ago when he came out with 3.
That's right. And this engine that's in the tractor right here, last August, he blew this engine up at Bowling Green. He machined away the bad parts of the block, put in Cummins sleeves, and, well, he's having some problems there, but...
Yeah, it's not coming to life. Now, tell us, are we talking about a naturally aspirated motor here?
No, all the Allisons originally had crankshaft-driven superchargers up on the front end of the engine, and that one still does. And it is fuel injected, but rather than buying a high-dollar fuel injection system, Mike made his own.
Now, a motor like that, as he backs up, he's going to get one more try at it, looks here. What kind of money are we talking about to buy an engine like this?
Well, of course, as we said before, all the Allisons are 40 years old, and you just have to really find them wherever you can get them. Sometimes you have to buy 2 or 3 junk ones to get enough parts to make a good one.
Well, it was truly a remarkable power plant back between 40 and 44. He's leaving the track right now, and it doesn't look good. 103.1 feet. All right, now we go to the pull-off. Boy, we've had some great pull-offs so far at Super Pull 14, and I'm sure this one is going to be a repeat. It'll be between Freeman and Engler, the 2 top modifieds in southern Indiana for sure, and Engler, of course, has just won so much the last couple of years. Engler, who has done well in NTPA. Freeman, who has done well in TNT. So it's sort of a TNT NTPA match-off. They're neighbors, only about 30, 40 miles apart. Of course, Engler built Freeman's chassis. This is a heads-up situation. Here we go now. Tim Engler off the line first here in the 5,000 modified out of Princeton, Indiana. Those big Aries coming to life. He's lifting nicely. Boy, what a perfect run Engler is making, and he gets the red flag at 214 feet, .2. 214.2 for Engler. Mike, we've seen some just perfect runs so far at Super Pull 14. It's going to take one out of Fred Freeman, I'm sure, as well, to beat Engler here in the 5 mod.
Yeah, I'm sure it will, Dave. You know, these two guys are friends, and they work on each other's tractor. But when it comes time to hook on, buddy, they're out there for the win.
We've been talking about power all the time. You said that Freeman had the right tires, the right engines for this length of track, but wouldn't Engler really have him out horsepowered by quite a bit?
Yeah, but it's not all a horsepower game. You've got to go out there and go farther than the other guy, not just spin your tires faster than...
All right, he's got to beat 214.2. That's the distance to beat. Tim Engler in the lead at 214.2 feet. Here he comes. Fred Freeman off to a rough start. He's bouncing pretty badly. Look at those tires going up and down. Now it smooths out toward the end of his run. The Wadesville, Indiana puller comes to a halt. This is going to be close as the red flag goes up and the measuring crew says 2:16.9. He wins it. Fred Freeman wins the pull on the final pass here in the 5 modified at Super Pull 14. He gets the handshake from Mike Speller out there, one of the N flagmen in a tremendous class.
Just an excellent pull.
That concludes the 5,000 modified as we get another look here of Mean Mestreater. Mike, he was bouncing bad. How in the heck did he ever really get the winning run with a run like that off the line?
I don't know. That was kind of a problem coming out of the hole there, but boy, once the tractor hooked into the track, he just definitely got the job done.
All right, we're going to go to the two-wheel drive trucks next. Strategy in the pull-off tonight, because they were all excellent tractors.
Well, I just decided that I would run it just exactly like I did the first time. The first time I got a little light, and everybody told me maybe I need to move some weight forward, but my tractor seems to work best when it gets the nose in there, so I just left it light and come out there and drove like normal.
Everybody looked like ran light tonight. Did they miss their weight, or was the track just that tough?
Well, the track was just that tough once you got down to took a real good bite.
This is probably one of the biggest wins I've had. This is one that I've always looked at since I was 12 years old, reading the Puller magazine and watching the Super Pull this and Super Pull that. That's why I left my foot in it. You know, there's no way tonight's purse, what I won, will pay if I would have destroyed that motor. But it's a prestige thing. It's something everybody wants to do once in their career.
All right, here we go now, starting class number 2 at session 2 of Super Pull 14. The 5,800-pound two-wheel drive trucks. Mike Snyder, this is always an exciting class because of the variety of equipment that we have, the wild driving that it takes, and the tremendous paint jobs and neat-looking stuff like we see on the roads many times.
Yeah, Dave, these are all full-bodied vehicles. They only have one engine in them. You don't really see too many multiple motors, but they're just like the tractors. They stand up in the air. You drive them with individual rear brakes, and it's a real exciting class.
Here. All right, the track officials have deemed necessary. They're going to restart the class. They feel that they cut them awful short, and they want to get them a little further down the track. So Chuck Johnson of Kansas is going to get another shot at it. Now, Mike, the puller has several options when he is the test puller in the class. Would you please explain those options?
Well, he can, if the track officials decide to make a change on the sled, the number 1 puller, the test puller, can come back and make another hook immediately if his engine isn't too hot and he feels maybe that he doesn't want to wait till later on in the class. He can drop back 6 places and give his equipment a chance to cool off, or if he has mechanical problems, he can drop clear to last place.
All right, Chuck Johnson decided wanted to come right back. Now here he goes again. He's lifting up again. He's doing a big wheel as he comes down the track. Almost a very straight run, though. This time you can see he's heading right for one of our cameras rather than further right of us, and this looks like a much further run. The distance for Chuck Johnson, 209.8. 209.8. Here's Nolan Hall, and I love the name of this one. I've announced pulls all around the country, and these guys are come up with some unique names. And the Lone Ranger, of course, is spelled a little bit differently. Mike, you don't go to your local banker and get a loan on a machine like this.
No, not hardly, Dave. They think it's a bad investment.
But I tell you, for the fans up in the stands, they love this sport. Nolan Hall out of Mason, Michigan in 1985. This is a Ford Ranger, the smaller body.
Again, it's been stretched out. They're just, they try to get that length out there. You have to really be competitive.
He's not running a Ford engine, though, Mike.
No, not by any means.
He's running a Rodeck engine, which they had extracted out of one of their pulling tractors, and they'd had some engine problems this past season. I hope they've got everything all fixed up. They've got a triple engine tractor that they run up in Michigan quite a bit at the time, along with Scott Baker and Nolan Hall, two of the best in the business. He's followed the NTPA and TNT circuits around the country, always competitive, and the fans get a kick out of seeing Fords in the class, because normally the classes are dominated by Chevys. We've got Dave Hager's old Ironside sled on the track right now. Ron Hickson, who you just saw in your picture there, is the operator of the other sled, the decision maker that we've always used, or already used rather, in some of the classes. So here we go now, the distance to beat. Chuck Johnson in the lead at 209.8. And here comes the 1985 Ford Ranger of Nolan Hall as he comes off the line. A little bit of a rocky start. The fan bouncing up and down. Now it begins to lift a little bit, lifting very nicely. Looks like he's got it properly weighted. Now he does a big wheel. You can see all the weights hanging out in the front. And he burns her to a hole at 199.4, the laser says. All right, here's Leo K now to Bradford, Pennsylvania. We've already seen his tractor. Here comes his two-wheel drive funny Corvette, the Driller also, as he calls it. Mike, this is radical.
Yeah, it is, Dave. It doesn't hardly look like a Corvette anymore, but it's definitely one of the strongest units in this class.
And I believe it was just a year ago, wasn't it, when he had the Corvette body on at the 1986 event, and he had taken off and changed the body completely off of the Chevrolet truck and put the Corvette body on. And of course, the Corvette fans, the Chevrolet fans up in the crowd really enjoy something like that. He's running the areas as we get another look at it here as he comes off the line. He's had some problems at just getting the right amount of speed and getting locked into the track, though, over the last year.
Yeah, and it looked like right there he might have had just a little bit of trouble. He didn't quite get the start that he was looking for.
Leo K's 195.6. From Hanoverton, Ohio, here's Terry Rodebush, just about 20 miles east of Canton, Ohio, in a 1973 Chevrolet. And here's a guy that's been very consistent no matter where he goes. And Mike, would you say that consistency is maybe as important as winning a pull now and then?
I'd say so, Dave. If you're going out and you're running for the national championship, you don't have to win every pull all year, but you've got to be right in there in the top 3 or 4 all year long. And if you can do that, I can almost guarantee you that you look awful good at the end of the season.
Now, by the noise, of course, of the engines, all these engines in this class, I believe just about 100% of them are running supercharged motors.
Right. In fact, almost all the classes in pulling are either turbocharged or supercharged, with the exception of the four-wheel drive.
All right, here comes Terry now, coming down the track. He's got to make it a smooth run. Oh, he lifts up very quickly. Awful high wheelie, Mike. And he might have gone just sky high too quick. He needed, what, another 100 pounds out on the front?
Yeah, another 100 pounds would have helped him, but he had good speed coming down the track. So
he did have good speed at that, but he's going to be short at 195.4, just 2/100 short of Leo K. Everybody's favorite, even if you're a Chevrolet fan, Mike. Here's the Florida Cracker, literally a wild and crazy guy. He's gone gator hunting. He's got his own airboat in Florida. From Gator Country, here comes the incomparable Chris Holdorf. This is the 1987 Ford Aerostar van, and he's always coming up with something different, something unique, and at the same time, he's got to be reckoned with in this class. He is tough.
Yes, he is, Dave. For a power plant, Chris uses what they call an AR Ford. It's a Ford engine, but it's built by Arias. In fact, you could even go to your local Ford dealer and buy one of these right over the counter.
Would you say that this would be a similar engine to what they run in NASCAR?
Yes, very close.
All right, Bill Elliott might have had a similar motor to this one, but this is one is supercharged. Elliott's would only be naturally aspirated. Here we come. Gator Country's Chris Holdorf, the Florida Cracker. He's coming down the track. He's looking good. He lifts nice. The back tires are biting in. He's getting a good bite. He's coming close. This is going to be close for the lead. The 87 van from Winter Park, Florida for Chris Holdorf, 2:13.2, and he takes the lead. Here's Floyd Hilton, and I tell you, I believe this is an 81 Dodge Omni, Mike.
Yep, I think it is.
But by looking at this, you wouldn't believe it.
No, Floyd is a former tractor puller. He used to run a twin-engine modified, and when the two-wheel drive classes started becoming real popular, he now has two vehicles in the two-wheel drive classes.
Floyd Hilton out of Winamac, Indiana, 81 Dodge Omni. And I tell you, it's a wild paint job. Some of these guys coming up, especially in the two-wheel drive classes, making them look like the funny cars, the funny trucks that you would see on the drag strips around the country. Except the big difference, these weigh a lot more than a drag racer would be.
Yeah, they do. And in tractor pulling, everything is classed according to weight, not how many engines you have or what kind of engines you have. It's the total weight of the machine and driver. Of course, in drag racing, you try to get your machine as light as possible. In tractor pulling or in any sort of pulling, it's
the weight of the machine.
The weight of the machine, exactly.
All right, Chris Holdorf in the lead at 2:13.2. This will be one of two Hilton rigs in. His son Ed will be back a little bit later from Star City, Indiana, with a 52 Chevy. I can't wait to see that one.
Yeah, it's just a classic piece of equipment.
All right, a little bit like the In-Laws and Outlaws also. Here we come now, and he's got to really nail it and hopefully have it properly balanced. Floyd will come close to winning a pull. He's not always in the winner circuit, but here again, another one of those guys is very consistent. We see him at Fort Recovery, Columbus, Ohio, all the pulls in the Midwest, and he's starting to travel quite a bit, and a very likable guy. I'd say, as he says on his T-shirt, almost famous Floyd Hilton. And he gets a little bit over to the right-hand side as you see the butterflies shut down, and the distance for Floyd Hilton, 195 even. A near-capacity crowd watching the action here this afternoon in our second class in Session 2 at the Indiana State Fairgrounds Coliseum for Super Pull 14, the granddaddy of them all, the most prestigious event in the country. Even though there's been pulls maybe that have been held longer, this is the one the pullers want to win, Mike, because there's more money posted here to win than any other event in the country, nearly $130,000. And here's a guy that's got a shot at winning this class, Wayne Roush. We call him the Doctor from Columbus, Ohio.
That's right. Does this truck look a little bit different to you than when we've seen it this past summer? I think they've lengthened it about 2 or 3 feet. It seems to be a lot longer than I remember this truck.
That's right. He had it out of Tim Engler's shop for a couple of weeks, getting lengthened. Here again, as you said earlier, you need that leverage. Wayne Roush, a former professor at Ohio State University in dairy science, also a former dairy farmer. He has his bachelor's degree, his master's degree, his Ph.D. from Ohio State, now turned professional two-wheel drive truck puller. Good friends of Bobby Rahal and Jim Head, who builds the race cars and is a racer in NHRA competition, also does the work on the engine here. Here comes Wayne Roush now from Dublin, Ohio, the 1986 Little Red Dodge truck. He's looking good, coming right down the center of the track, and certainly, Mike, it looks like lengthening the truck has helped because he moves in at 2:07.1. Here comes the other Gator. This time it's a 1986 Ford pickup truck. Chris Holdorf, who's already in the lead right now at 2:13.2, is going to get another shot. Now, of course, you always like to have two vehicles if you can, or even more, if your pocketbook can afford it, because you've got just more shots at moving the flag. So what he'd like to do is even beat his leading distance of 2:13.2. Now, can we say that this truck is a little shorter on wheelbase, or is it about the same?
Well, this is one of the first two-wheel drives that Chris come out with. And, of course, when he built his new Aerostar, you know, they realized that the length was the answer, and it had to be in there.
Here he comes. Boy, he's getting way back on those two wheels, doing a real high wheelie. But here's one of the trucks that can run quick down the track.
With his front end that high in the air.
That's unusual, isn't it? And the distance for Holdorf, he's going to come a little short of his leading run, 2:12.6. We were talking about Ed and Floyd Hilton. Here comes Floyd's son, Edward Hilton, out of Star City, Indiana. 52 Chevy. This will bring back some memories. However, not for me, Mike. All right. I believe this was what they called a business panel van. This isn't a milk truck or or anything like that. It was a business panel van, sort of a delivery truck that maybe groceries would have been delivered in back in '52. Right now, his dad has a distance of 195. Doesn't look like any full pulls in this class unless somebody pulls off a miraculous run.
That's right, Dave. This was the original two-wheel drive puller that Floyd built, and then just this past season he came out with these new funny cars.
Well, he's got a good run going. Here's son Edward Hilton. Many of the guys have been sliding over toward the right-hand side of the track as the driver looks at it. You can see his entry number out there in the front. Beautiful purple violet paint job out there. The distance 191 and 1, so he falls about 4 feet. All right, Mike, as Kenny Lamont, the final puller here in the class, pulls out onto the track from Crossville, Illinois. Sort of a sad note in this class. Two competitors were unable to come to the line. Dan Biebrick and Jim Brock, one of the in-laws and the outlaws pulling team here in the 5,800-pound two-wheel drive, because we understand from the pits they missed the drivers' meeting and were not allowed to hook here in this class. We hope that they'll be back on Sunday afternoon in the heavier weight class. So here we go now. The final competitor is Go-Go. The TNT Gorilla goes out trying to give some encouragement.
Wonder where he got those shorts he's wearing. Suppose Chris Holdorf brought them up for him?
He didn't get them out of my dresser, I guarantee it. Probably out of Holdorf's. The Midnight Express, Kenny Lamont, a farmer, farms about 2,000 acres of corn and soybeans, and Carolyn Lamont and their children are here watching this afternoon. It's the El Camino 1985 El Camino. To beat Holdorf, he's got to pass 2:13-2. This is for all the marbles. This is for all the money. This is for the prestige.
Got a real good start out of the hole, Dave. It lifted good.
And I tell you, oh, he's up high. He's up way high. I don't know if he can do it. It's going to take a miraculous run, but it's going to be close. He's looking back over there, looking at the flagman. He says, I've got a chance. Oh, now his fist comes up. Listen to this. He beats Holdorf by 4 feet exactly. 2:17-2, your winner. In the Midnight Express, Kenny Lamont out of Crossville, Illinois. Let's watch it one more time. All right, here he comes now. He's lifting, making a nice lift, Mike. A good run going.
Yeah, he did, Dave. He got a perfect start. The vehicle lifted soon after he left the starting line, and it just made an excellent pull.
He's a happy guy. The last puller in the class, we've seen it happen many other times. He wins the 5,800 two-wheel drive. All right, the final results in the 5,800-pound two-wheel drive. The top 5 goes to Kenny Lamont, finishing number 1 with his El Camino 2:17-2. Number 2 goes to Chris Holdorf with his 87 Ford Aerostar van at 2:13-2. Number 3, Chris Holdorf with the Ford pickup truck at 2:12-6. Number 4, Chuck Johnson out of Kansas with the Chevy Love at 2:09-8. And Wayne Roush, the doctor from Dublin, Ohio, finishes number 5 with the 86 Dodge at 2:07-1. All right, we start the 5,500-pound super stock here, class number 3, but a story has developed. We had run 8 vehicles in the first round of competition when suddenly the decision-maker sled broke what we thought was a rear axle, Mike Snyder, but now we've come to learn that it was the rear end of the sled that has completely junked out. Thus, the 8 tractors have to come back to the starting line. We've brought up the other sled, Dave Hager's Old Ironside out of King City, Missouri, and we must restart the entire class here in the 5,500-pound super stock. We rejoin the action here this afternoon's session. Here's Roger Butts out of Napanee, Indiana with his John Deere. And this is not a diesel tractor, Mike.
No, it isn't, Dave. This John Deere runs on alcohol, and it's real competitive in this class. Roger's run this tractor for quite a few years. Looks like he might have a little problem there getting off the starting line, but normally that's a real competitive tractor.
Go ahead and see what happens next. He's going to back up and try it again. All right, we'll pick it up here once again. It's 75 feet indoors or outdoors, doesn't matter where he goes, up to 75 feet. Seems like TNT used 60 feet or something like that.
Ends up with 87 feet.
Okay, so he's going to try it one more time. He isn't going to go very far. Let's roll it again. All right, here we go. This is his second attempt. He's bouncing and wheezing and having a lot of problems down there in the line. You can see he just isn't getting very far at all. Roger Butts out of Napanee, Indiana. You can see he's just past the 75-foot mark, and now it conks out on him with his John Deere alcohol burner 87.10. That's the official run as he passes the 75-foot mark. All right, now we come back to John Predovic out of Springfield, Tennessee, with a Ford 7910, sort of an unusual number on this Ford tractor. Don't see a lot of Fords anymore, Mike, but the ones we've seen in the past can really fly.
Boy, I'll say some of the strongest super stalkers that have ever run have been Fords, Dave.
Look at this. A good run going for John Predovic out of Springfield, Tennessee. Gets over to the right-hand side of the track, and he's going to record a distance of 200.7 feet. All right, here's Dwayne McKillop now out of Wabash, Indiana with an AC 180. If you're watching this tape for the first time and could not be at Indy Super Pull 14 for Session 2, we'll bring you up on the story. The sled broke the decision maker. After we had run 8 vehicles in the class during the first round, we had to bring up Dave Hager's old Ironside and completely restart the class, and we're underway here once again. Dwayne McKillop out of Wabash, Indiana with the AC 180. The distance to beat now, 200.7 feet. A 180 tractor, Mike, very popular here in the 5,000-pound super stock class.
Yes, they are, Dave. They have a 301 cubic inch Alice Chalmers diesel in them, but this the 180 is a lot heavier, or a lot lighter, a lot easier to get down in the 5 super stock class rather than, I'll say, like a 190 XT, which has the same engine but a heavier chassis.
Very close to going out of bounds. He keeps it in bind by about 8 inches as Warren Power goes over and takes a look, one of the TNT officials here at Super Pull 14, and his distance here this afternoon, 222.1. He takes the lead. Here's Tom Urmson coming off the line, tires flying. He's won this class before. Tommy Urmson out of Bakerstown, Pennsylvania, near Pittsburgh, an engineer over there. He knows how to make this International 460 run. He's looking at a good pull. His tires are burning right at the end. Boy, they stop quick. 2:12 and 9. Going to come up short, though. All right, we want to take you back in the tape a little bit because a guy that was unable to come back for the second go-around after the sled broke was John Parker out of Castalia, Ohio with his Oliver 1650. And we're going to replay the run now, and you'll see some problems that he had. Here's the green flag from J.J. Blum. Mike, this is an Oliver 1650, the only one of the class.
That's right, Dave, and an Oliver 1650 is a pretty good-sized tractor to have clear down in the 5,000-pound class. And he gets a real good bite out of the hole. The tractor jumps to the left a little bit and then starts bucking, and when it drops the front end one time, it appears the tie rod broke and messed up his steering. But it takes a lot of work to get one of these big tractors down in a lightweight class, and even though you have a lot of horsepower, a lot of times you don't have enough front end weight to be able to control the vehicle, and that's more or less what happened.
All right. Do you think that something else happened in the rear end of the tractor to allow the front end to come down and then break the front end?
That may very well have happened. He was on the brakes pretty hard trying to bring it back, and something in the transmission or rear end may have let go, causing the front end to drop that hard.
Well, a tough break. He was unable to come back for the second go-around. All righty, here we go now. Danny Brown out of Auburn, Indiana, home of the very famous old-fashioned cars they have up there, Mike, in northeastern part of the Hoosier State. Here's an International 666, very popular tractor we've seen over the years in the 5,000 and 7,000-pound classes.
Yes, it is, Dave. It's possible to get a tremendous amount of horsepower out of these 666 Internationals, and it's a lightweight tractor. You can get down in this class and still has some front end weight to play with, which is very important.
All right, this lightweight tractor now moving the sled from one side of the track to the other. That's really going to cut down his distance, and the distance for Danny Brown, 200.6 feet. Here's Jim Acton now out of Lynn, Indiana, a very professional driver in the 5,000 and 7,000-pound classes. He zips up his driver's suit, which is now a mandatory requirement at NTPA competition. You see the guys in the smoke machine jumping down after they just hooked up the smoke tube. He's got his work cut out for him, but here's a guy that could do it, Mike. He's been up and down tracks all across the country and throughout the Midwest many, many times.
Yeah, he sure has, Dave. Jim's been around a long time. He's a fine gentleman, and I can recall one time at a pull down in North Carolina where just after he left the starting line, the tractor pulled a big wheelie, and when it came down, it broke completely in half right at the clutch housing.
Well, we remember years ago in 1974 at the first Indy Super Pull when one of those Olivers, one of those Oliver 88s, or a make similar to that, broke in half off the line as well. Here we come now. Jim Acton, dust devil, good-looking tractor. Tires are really turning. Beautiful run as he begins to, he's sliding to the right, sliding to the right.
Just wants to pull every one of them over to the right-hand side of the track.
And, of course, they're pulling a lot of weight behind him, and that sled sometimes maneuvers the tractor one way or the other. Jim Acton, 204.9. All right, now here's a guy that I guess if I was going to put a couple of quarters on the pull that I might take a chance with because he really has made super runs in the past, extremely consistent. Dave Chrisman, the farmer from just south of Indianapolis at Edinburgh, Indiana, with an AC 180. And here again, as you said earlier, the 180 is balanced just right for this 5,000-pound class.
And I'll tell you, Dave, of all the 180s in this class, Dave Chrisman probably makes as much power as anybody out there.
And it may look the best as well. Here he's got problems. He raises his hands.
Might be a turbocharger problem or something. He'll back up and wind her up a little harder. Maybe it'll come out the second time.
Mike, let me ask you this. While they're motioning for him to go back to the starting line, with the smoke tube on there and the exhaust system, do you feel that there is any resistance to that smoke getting out of there, which may back up in the motor at all? Would that hurt?
Yes, it would, with all the extra plumbing and so forth that's on the tractor to connect it to the smoke machine. And also, the driver can't hear the engine. As he starts winding the engine up and the turbos start coming alive, you really can't hear that. And that's how a lot of the drivers bring these tractors out of the hole. They hear the engine when it comes up to full power.
All right, Dave Chrisman now with his second chance. This is the one that counts. He's got to make it a good one, or he could be looking at the bottom of the class. Here he comes, Dave Chrisman, the farmer from southern Indiana, and same problem as before. Evidently, a turbo is out.
That's too bad. I'm sure the other pullers in the class are relieved, but I'd like to see Dave. He'd be right in there if that tractor run the way it normally does.
The final distance, 45.3 feet. All righty, here we go now. Harold Volland out of Columbus, Indiana, just about 40 miles south of Indianapolis. Oliver 88, and this was a very popular tractor in the early 50s, Mike.
Yes, it was, Dave. This is another one of the alcohol burners in the class. Harold and his partner Dennis Lucas have been pulling these tractors for as long as I can remember.
Now, Mike, we notice there's grooves in the tire there. Is this something extra special that they do to get better traction?
Every puller has his idea of the kind of cut he wants on these tires, what makes the tires bite into the track and keep the tractor going straight. And this is just something that this team tries.
What would a tractor like this, when it came from the factory, have in the way of horsepower?
Oh, gee, many Christmas, Dave. That tractor's older than I am. I suppose maybe 50, 60 horsepower.
What would he be cranking out now?
Oh, 700, 800, I suppose.
Oh, my word. Tremendous feat when they can build that kind of horsepower out of that size of an engine. Harold Volland on the Columbus, Indiana, the distance 194.5. Randy Reed's backing up to the sled right now. Randy from Princeton, Wisconsin, with an International 460. You see Dennis Brabeck being pulled back out onto the track after doing a lot of work back in the pits. This is going to be quite a story developing, I do believe, here near the end of the class. All right. Randy Reitz now getting ready, and J.J. Blum of the NTPA flagging staff down on the line. Green light is on the sled. Old Ironsides, Dave Hager up in the control seat. Here we come now, Randy Reitz. And you can see there's smoke coming out. He's past the 75-foot mark, and that's going to be it. They won't give him another chance because he went by 75 feet. The final distance, 101.8. Mike, I don't know what happened, but nothing locked up.
It looks like maybe the first time through when they were running on the other sled, Dave, he may have burned a piston or something because there was a lot of blow-by coming out the bottom of the engine.
Here we get another look at it. You see a lot of white smoke coming out from underneath, and it looks like he's got internal motor problems, not building enough horsepower to get locked up into the rear end and turn the tires.
Yeah, that's a real shame when they have to start a class over like that because it's really hard on the equipment.
Here comes Mike Cavanaugh now from Kaukauna, Wisconsin in Badgerland with an AC 180. And Mike, I'm looking down the lineup here. We've had, it looks like more AC 180s than anything else in the class.
Well, they're a pretty popular tractor in this class, Dave. They're lightweight and they have a good engine in them. You can make a lot of horsepower.
Oh, he's on it. Look at this one. A good straight run going. He's got a shot at beating McKillop. He's coming close. Some smoke coming out of the motor. The distance, 2:21.7. He looks like he's going to lose by about 4 to 5 inches to Dwayne McKillop, but we've still got one to go, I do believe, and that's going to be Dennis Brabeck. All right, here we go now. Dennis Brabeck, the old pro in the seat, and he is getting a reprieve today, Mike. Tell us the problems they had at the beginning of the first start, and then what he had to do back in the pit area.
Well, Dennis was originally the test puller in the class, and if you remember, his tractor wouldn't run. And they weren't quite sure what the problem was. They went back in the pit area and kind of figured that was it for the day. When the sled broke and they started the class over, they took the hood off the tractor and really started tearing into things. Found out the bottom turbocharger, the hardest one to change, was bad. they had enough time to get it changed, and they got back in as the last competitor in the class.
Truly a remarkable story, something we'd see at the Indy 500 with a quick pit stop, and normally not in pulling, where it takes a long time to change a turbo, especially the bottom one. They skin a lot of knuckles, and to do this in about a half hour to 45 minutes is no small feat. Here we go now, about a 6-time NTPA national champion, the 5,000-pound super stock, the last guy to run. Here he comes, here he comes. Dennis Brabeck going for the flag. He's going to come up a little short, but not a bad run at all. 2:19.3. The Brabeck brothers take third place in the 5,500-pound super stock. A tremendous effort just to get back to the line, and then to finish in third place really makes their whole day. Now in the 5,500-pound super stock, Dwayne McKillop finishes number 1 out of Wabash, Indiana, with an AC 180 at 2:22.1. Just behind him by a couple of inches, Mike Cavanaugh out of Kaukauna, Wisconsin, an AC 180 at 2:21.7. Number 3, Dennis Brabeck, Lorenz, Iowa, AC 180 at 2:19.3. Number 4, Tommy Ermson out of Bakerstown, Pennsylvania, IH 460 at 2:12.9. And Jim Acton finishing number 5 out of Linden, Indiana, International 666 at 2:04.9. Those are the final results of the 5,500-pound super stock.
For your applause to pick your favorite, who you think does the best job of entertaining you. The legendary Bigfoot, you can see, front and rear steering.
Look at that.
Big block Ford engine. You can see the big carburetor set up a time. Ford fans, let's hear it for him as he comes in. Bigfoot!
All right.
Watch him go. He's
Check it
going to
out.
attack him.
Whoa! Whoa! He'll never get out of there, Les.
I'm not sure. He'll put it in gear.
He'll never get out of there. What do you think? Can he make it out? Well,
all righty, Mike Snyder, a tremendous afternoon. We ran a little bit long because of the breakage in the 5,500-pound super stock. We were really moving when the sled rear end came apart, and then we had to restart that last class. But an excellent session of lightweight tractors and the two-wheel drive funny cars and funny trucks.
That's right, Dave. All 3 classes in this afternoon session was just a super show.
In fact, everything went just right, except the guy climbing out of Bigfoot. You see him down there, Ken Kelling, with the white and blue shirt on and blue pants. They have broken the right front wheel and problems with the tire. He came down too hard with Bigfoot, and everything basically perfect except for the restart and for Bigfoot having some problems there at the end. But as you've said over the years, and I always like your expression, it's only machinery.
No matter how well it's built or how well it's maintained, eventually it's going to break, and sometimes it breaks at a pretty inopportune moment, but that's pulling.
That concludes session number 2, Saturday afternoon at Indy Super Pull 14.
Here just a bit, Les.